A grocery cart can quietly predict whether your week will feel organized or wasteful before you even reach the checkout. Two people can spend almost the same amount, yet one leaves with food that turns into simple, balanced meals, while the other ends the week with forgotten ingredients, random snacks, and another expensive trip to the store. The difference is not always income, discipline, or buying the cheapest products. It often comes down to a few small decisions made while choosing what enters the cart. Japanese grocery habits reveal a smarter way to make those decisions, and one of them is so simple that once you notice it, you may never shop the same way again. 1. The three-zone cart rule. Fresh, flexible, backup. The three-zone cart rule is a simple way to stop filling your trolley with random items that do not work together. Instead of shopping aisle by aisle and hoping everything somehow becomes useful later, divide your cart mentally into 3 zones: fresh, flexible, and backup. Each zone has a different job, and together they create a grocery shop that is easier to manage throughout the week. The fresh zone is for foods you expect to use early. This may include leafy vegetables, fresh fruit, tofu, fish, dairy, or other ingredients that have a shorter life. The purpose is not to fill half the cart with fresh food just because it looks healthy. The goal is to buy an amount you can realistically use before quality begins to drop. If you know the first few meals of the week will include salad, soup, or stir-fried vegetables, then these items already have a clear destination. The flexible zone contains ingredients that can move between several meals. Eggs, rice, noodles, frozen vegetables, beans, simple sauces, mushrooms, or vegetables that work in different dishes can fit here. These foods give you room to adjust when plans change. If one dinner does not happen, the ingredients are still useful somewhere else. That flexibility protects both your budget and your time. The backup zone is small but important. It holds 1 or 2 dependable options for the days when you are too tired to cook properly. Instead of ordering expensive food because the kitchen feels empty, you already have something simple available. This could be frozen dumplings with vegetables, rice with eggs, a basic soup, or another quick meal your household genuinely enjoys. The strength of this rule is balance. Fresh foods support variety, flexible foods prevent waste, and backup foods protect you from last-minute spending. Before checkout, look at your cart and ask whether all 3 zones are present. If one section is overloaded, adjust it. Over time, this small habit can make your grocery trips feel far more deliberate, while helping the food you buy actually turn into meals instead of forgotten purchases. 2. Use the 1 week, 1 core flavor method. The 1 week, 1 core flavor method is a practical way to make grocery shopping more focused without making meals feel repetitive. Instead of buying a completely different set of sauces, seasonings, and specialty ingredients for every recipe, choose one main flavor direction for the week and build several meals around it. This gives your shopping list more structure and reduces the number of half-used bottles and forgotten ingredients left in the kitchen. For example, 1 week might have a light soy, ginger, and sesame direction. That same flavor base can work with rice bowls, vegetables, tofu, eggs, noodles, or fish. The meals do not have to taste identical. You can change the texture, cooking method, vegetables, or protein while keeping a few familiar seasonings in common. One evening might be a simple noodle dish, another a rice bowl, and another a warm soup with a completely different feel. The real advantage is that each ingredient has more than one purpose. A bottle of sesame oil is not purchased for one recipe and then ignored. Fresh ginger can move from a stir-fry into soup or a dressing. Green onions can finish several different meals. This makes it easier to use what you buy before it loses freshness or disappears into the back of the refrigerator. This method can also help control spending because flavor often drives impulse purchases. A new recipe may look inexpensive until you notice that it requires several condiments, herbs, and seasonings you do not normally keep. Those small additions can quickly raise the total cost of the trip. Choosing one core flavor direction allows you to enjoy variety while limiting unnecessary extras. The key is not to make every meal taste the same. Think of the core flavor as a foundation, not a rule. Add different vegetables, use different cooking techniques, and adjust the intensity from meal to meal. By the end of the week, you have created several distinct dishes from a smaller, more useful group of ingredients. That is the strength of the method: less clutter in the cart, fewer unfinished products at home, and enough flexibility to keep everyday meals interesting. 3. Buy ingredients that create at least 3 different meals. A useful grocery item should not become useless simply because one planned dinner changes. One smart way to build a more economical cart is to choose ingredients that can naturally become part of at least 3 different meals. This does not mean eating the same dish repeatedly. It means giving each purchase enough flexibility to survive changes in your schedule, appetite, and available cooking time. Eggs might become a quick breakfast, be added to noodles, or complete a simple rice bowl. A bunch of spinach could accompany a main meal, go into soup, or be folded into an omelet. The ingredient stays the same, but its role changes. Before putting something into your cart, especially a fresh ingredient, mentally give it 3 possible destinations. You do not need 3 complete recipes. Simply ask, if my original plan changes, where else can I use this? If you struggle to find another purpose, consider whether the item deserves space in your cart this week. This approach is particularly helpful with ingredients that are easy to buy enthusiastically, but difficult to finish. A specialty vegetable or unusual ingredient may look exciting in the store, but if it only works in one specific dish, missing that meal can leave it sitting untouched. Multi-purpose foods give you more freedom. They allow you to improvise, rather than forcing you to follow a strict menu just to prevent waste. The method also changes how you think about value. An ingredient is not valuable simply because it is inexpensive. Its real value depends on how easily it becomes food you actually eat. Something slightly more expensive that contributes to breakfast, lunch, and dinner may serve your household better than a cheaper product that has only one narrow use. You begin recognizing your own high-value ingredients, the foods that repeatedly rescue meals, combine easily with what you have, and rarely end up forgotten. Building your cart around those dependable choices can make healthy home cooking feel simpler while helping every grocery purchase do more work. 4. Choose one emergency dinner before you enter the store. An emergency dinner is not a fancy recipe. It is a simple meal you already know you can make on the kind of evening when you are tired, busy, late, or simply do not feel like cooking. Choosing that meal before you enter the store can protect both your budget and your routine because it gives you a clear backup before hunger makes the decision for you. Think about the evenings when takeout feels most tempting. Usually the problem is not that there is no food at home. The problem is that nothing feels easy enough. Ingredients may be available, but they require chopping, planning, defrosting, or too many steps. At that moment, convenience becomes more valuable than price, and spending rises quickly. The emergency dinner solves this by removing friction. It should use a small number of ingredients, take little effort, and still feel like a real meal. For example, rice with eggs and vegetables, a simple noodle bowl, miso-style soup with tofu, or a quick fish and rice combination can all work depending on your household. The exact meal matters less than one rule. It must be something you would genuinely eat when you are exhausted. Before shopping, decide what that meal will be for the week. Then make sure the ingredients are in the cart. This turns convenience into something you plan rather than something you pay extra for later. It also reduces the temptation to buy several different just-in-case foods that may never get used. A good emergency dinner should also be dependable. Avoid choosing something that still requires special ingredients, long preparation, or perfect timing. If it is supposed to rescue a difficult evening, it should be almost automatic. The easier it is to prepare, the more likely it will actually prevent an expensive last-minute order. You may build a small rotation of reliable emergency meals that gives you variety without losing simplicity. The result is not only lower spending. It also creates a calmer feeling at home because you know there is always one practical option waiting for you, even when the day does not go as planned. 5. Shop produce by color gaps, not by habit. Many people buy the same fruits and vegetables every week without thinking about whether their cart is actually balanced. Tomatoes, bananas, cucumbers, lettuce, and perhaps one familiar vegetable go into the basket simply because they always do. The problem is that routine can make your produce section repetitive, and repetition can limit both variety and usefulness. A better method is to notice the color gaps in your cart before you leave the produce aisle. Look at what you have already chosen. Do you have mostly green foods? Add something orange, red, purple, or white. If the basket already contains spinach, cucumber, and broccoli, you might choose carrots, tomatoes, red cabbage, mushrooms, or another seasonal option instead of adding even more green produce. You do not need to collect every color in one trip. The point is to create a broader mix over time. This method makes shopping simpler because you are not trying to remember a complicated nutrition chart. Color becomes an easy visual guide. Different fruits and vegetables naturally contain different nutrients and plant compounds, so varying the colors in your meals can support a more diverse diet. It also makes simple food more enjoyable. A bowl with several colors usually feels more complete and appealing than one made from 3 nearly identical ingredients. The habit can also save money when used with flexibility. If the red vegetable you normally buy is expensive, choose another red or orange option that is better priced that week. If berries are costly, a different seasonal fruit may fill the same color gap without stretching your budget. You are no longer tied to one exact product. Most importantly, color gap shopping helps you break automatic buying. Instead of reaching for the same product because it is familiar, you pause and ask what your cart is missing. That small question encourages variety without making grocery shopping complicated. Over time, your meals become more colorful, your choices become more intentional, and healthy eating starts to feel less like following rules and more like building a balanced cart, one simple decision at a time. 6. Use a fixed basket limit for non-essential foods. Non-essential foods are rarely expensive because of one large purchase. The real problem is accumulation. A drink here, a snack there, a dessert near the checkout, a limited edition item, an extra packet just in case. Each one feels small, but together they can quietly push the grocery bill much higher than planned. A fixed basket limit creates a simple boundary before those small choices start multiplying. The idea is easy. Decide in advance how much space, money, or how many items you will allow for non-essential foods. For example, you might choose only 2 treat items per trip, or set a small amount of your grocery budget aside for extras. Once that limit is reached, any new item has to replace something already chosen rather than simply being added on top. This changes the decision-making process. Instead of asking, "Do I want this?" you begin asking, "Do I want this more than the other extra I already picked?" That small shift makes impulse buying more deliberate without removing enjoyment. You can still buy something fun, but the choice becomes intentional rather than automatic. A fixed limit is especially useful in stores where promotions, samples, and attractive displays encourage last-minute spending. These items are designed to feel harmless because the individual price may be low. But when several of them enter the cart, they can easily take up the portion of your budget that could have gone toward useful staples or fresh food. The method also helps reduce food clutter at home. When too many snacks and extras are available, some are forgotten, opened at the same time, or left unfinished. A smaller selection is easier to enjoy, track, and finish. The goal is not strict restriction, it is clear. By deciding your limit before shopping, you remove the need to negotiate with yourself in every aisle. Over time, this creates a healthier relationship with treats. You still enjoy them, but they stop controlling the total cost of the trip. 7. Buy convenience only where it prevents takeout. Convenience food is not automatically a bad purchase. In fact, it can be one of the smartest things in your cart when it solves a real problem. The key is to use convenience strategically. Instead of buying ready-made food simply because it looks easy, choose it only when it helps you avoid a more expensive decision later, such as ordering takeout because you are too tired to cook. Think about the evenings when your routine usually falls apart. Maybe you come home late, finish work exhausted, or have very little time between responsibilities. Those are the moments when a fully homemade meal becomes unrealistic. If your kitchen has nothing quick available, the easiest option often becomes delivery or restaurant food. That is where one carefully chosen convenience item can protect your budget. For example, pre-cut vegetables may cost more than whole vegetables, but if they help you make dinner in 10 minutes instead of ordering food, they may still save money overall. The same can be true for frozen dumplings, cooked rice, ready-to-use tofu, simple soup ingredients, or another fast meal component your household actually enjoys. The point is not to fill the cart with convenience products, it is to identify the exact place where convenience has the highest value. A useful question is, what difficult moment is this item solving? If you cannot answer that clearly, it may just be an extra expense. But if you already know that Wednesday night is always busy, then buying one practical shortcut for Wednesday makes sense. This habit also helps you avoid the false choice between cooking everything from scratch and eating expensive takeout. There is a middle ground. You can combine one convenient ingredient with simple foods you already have at home and still create a balanced meal quickly. Used this way, convenience becomes a tool rather than a habit. You spend a little more in the right place to avoid spending much more in the wrong one. That is smart grocery shopping, not always choosing the cheapest item, but choosing the option that makes the entire week easier and more affordable. 8. Choose foods with a clear finish date in mind. A useful way to shop more intelligently is to stop thinking only about when food expires and start thinking about when you realistically expect to finish it. These are not always the same thing. A product may remain safe or usable for several days, but if you cannot picture when your household will actually eat it, there is a good chance it will slowly move toward the back of the refrigerator and eventually be forgotten. When you pick up a fresh ingredient, mentally give it a place on your week's timeline. You might think, this should be finished by Tuesday, or I need to use this before the weekend. You are not creating a strict schedule. You are simply connecting the purchase to a realistic period of use. That small decision gives the food a purpose before it even enters your kitchen. This becomes especially valuable with delicate foods. Leafy greens, fresh herbs, berries, certain mushrooms, open dairy products, and prepared ingredients can lose quality relatively quickly. It is easy to buy several of these foods during one shopping trip because each one looks appealing. The problem appears later when they all need attention at the same time. Suddenly, Thursday arrives, and you have 4 different ingredients that should have been used earlier. Spread the pressure across the week. Choose some foods for the first few days, and others that can comfortably wait longer. If you buy something particularly delicate, know that it belongs near the beginning of your meal sequence. More durable ingredients can support later meals. You can even use this idea when deciding between 2 similar products. Imagine you are choosing vegetables for the second half of the week. Instead of automatically selecting the one you usually buy, consider which option is more likely to remain in good condition until you need it. The best choice is not always the ingredient that looks most exciting in the store, it is the one that still makes sense when you are ready to cook it. The finish date also helps with opened packages. Once something is opened, mentally update its priority. A half-used container should become more important than opening another similar product. This keeps several versions of the same food from accumulating at once. A simple way to make the system visible is to group foods according to urgency when you unpack them. Items that should be finished soon can stay in the easiest-to-see part of the refrigerator. Foods intended for later in the week can sit behind them. You are creating a gentle sequence rather than relying entirely on memory. This habit also changes impulse purchases. Before adding an unexpected fresh item to your basket, ask yourself, when will I finish this? If you immediately know the answer, the purchase may fit naturally into your week. If you cannot imagine a realistic opportunity to eat it, that hesitation tells you something important. You may like the idea of the food more than you actually need the food. Thinking about finish dates helps you shop according to your real household rhythm. You begin noticing how quickly certain foods disappear, which ones consistently remain too long, and how much fresh food you can comfortably manage between shopping trips. Your cart becomes more accurate because it reflects actual consumption rather than good intentions. The goal is not to make grocery shopping rigid or turn every ingredient into a deadline. It is simply to give perishable food a future before you pay for it. When you can clearly imagine when something will be eaten, you are far more likely to use it while it is still fresh, enjoyable, and worth the money you spent on it. 9. Use the half-fresh, half-long life grocery balance. A smart grocery cart should not depend entirely on food that needs to be eaten immediately. If almost everything you buy is fresh and highly perishable, the week can quickly become stressful. You may begin with good intentions, but then plans change. One dinner gets delayed, another meal happens outside the home, and suddenly several ingredients are all reaching the point where they need to be used at once. The half-fresh, half-long-life balance helps prevent that problem by giving your kitchen both freshness and flexibility. The idea is simple. One part of your groceries should include fresh foods you expect to use in the first few days, while the other part should contain foods that stay useful for longer. The exact ratio does not need to be mathematically perfect. Half and half is simply a practical reminder not to overload the cart with ingredients that all have the same short window of use. Fresh foods might include leafy vegetables, soft fruit, tofu, fresh fish, dairy, or other items you plan to cook soon. These bring variety, texture, and freshness to meals, but beside them, include longer-lasting options such as rice, noodles, oats, eggs, root vegetables, frozen vegetables, canned beans, dried seaweed, shelf-stable soup ingredients, or other foods that fit your household. These items act as support when the week becomes less predictable. This balance is especially useful for people who shop once a week. If every meal depends on delicate produce, the last few days can become difficult. The refrigerator may look empty, even though plenty of food was purchased. Long-life ingredients solve that gap. They give you something reliable to build around when the freshest foods are already gone. The method can also reduce emergency spending. Imagine it is Thursday evening, and the fresh ingredients you planned to cook are no longer usable or were eaten earlier than expected. Without a backup, you may feel forced to order food. But if you still have rice, eggs, frozen spinach, noodles, or another dependable combination, dinner is still possible without another shopping trip. Another advantage is that long-life foods can support fresh foods instead of replacing them. A simple bowl of rice becomes more interesting with fresh vegetables. Frozen peas can fill out a meal when the refrigerator is running low. Eggs can turn leftover vegetables into something more complete. Dry noodles can become a quick base for whatever remains in the kitchen. The two categories work together. This approach also improves budgeting, because you are not constantly rebuilding the entire kitchen from zero. Long-life staples carry part of the workload from one week into the next. That means some shopping trips can focus more on replacing fresh food rather than repurchasing every category. The important thing is to choose long-life items you genuinely use. A cupboard full of canned food nobody likes is not useful simply because it lasts a long time. Durability only creates value when the food actually becomes part of your meals. This balance creates a calmer grocery rhythm. Fresh food gives you variety at the beginning of the week, while longer-lasting ingredients protect the second half. Instead of feeling pressure to use everything immediately, you have room to adjust. That makes the kitchen more resilient, the shopping list more practical, and healthy eating easier to maintain even when the week does not go exactly as planned. 10. Pick one protein to stretch across several meals. Protein can become one of the most expensive parts of a grocery trip, especially when every meal is built around a different main ingredient. Chicken for one dinner, fish for another, beef for a third, tofu for lunch, eggs for breakfast, and something else for the weekend can quickly push the total bill much higher than expected. A simpler strategy is to choose one main protein for several meals and use it in different ways throughout the week. The goal is not to eat the exact same dish again and again. The goal is to make one purchase work harder. For example, if you choose chicken, one portion might be grilled and served with rice and vegetables. Another could be sliced into a noodle bowl, and the remaining amount might be added to a simple soup or lunch dish. The protein stays the same, but the meal feels different because the format, seasoning, and sides change. This approach can make shopping more focused. Instead of buying several separate proteins in small quantities, you can compare prices more carefully and choose one option that gives you good value. If a family-size package makes sense for your household, divide it into portions as soon as you get home. Some can be used early in the week, while the rest can be stored or frozen safely for later meals. That prevents a large purchase from becoming waste. The method also makes meal planning easier because one major decision is already made. Once you know the main protein for the week, you can build the rest of the cart around it. Vegetables, grains, soups, and sauces can be chosen to create variety without constantly changing the core ingredient. For a Japanese-inspired week, tofu can be especially flexible. It can be served in a rice bowl, added to soup, pan-cooked with vegetables, or paired with noodles. Eggs can work in a similar way, moving between breakfast, rice dishes, and quick dinners. Fish may also be stretched across different meals if purchased and stored appropriately. The exact choice depends on your budget, dietary needs, and what your household actually enjoys. This habit can also reduce the temptation to overbuy. When people see several proteins on sale, it is easy to purchase all of them at once. But if your refrigerator already contains enough food for the week, extra variety can create more pressure than value. Choosing one main protein gives the shopping trip a clear direction. Another advantage is that it encourages creativity with the supporting ingredients. If the protein remains familiar, you can vary the vegetables, seasonings, and cooking style. One meal can feel light and simple, another warm and comforting, and another quick and practical. Variety comes from the combination, not from constantly buying something new. The key is to choose a protein that suits several meals and fits your real schedule. Do not select something that only works when you have plenty of time to cook. If you know the week will be busy, choose an option that can be prepared simply and reused easily. This method can help you learn which proteins give your household the best balance of cost, convenience, and satisfaction. You may discover that some ingredients consistently create 3 useful meals, while others are expensive but only work once. That knowledge makes future shopping faster and more accurate. Stretching one protein across several meals is not about cutting portions too small or making food feel repetitive. It is about using a valuable ingredient with more intention. When one purchase can support several different meals, your grocery budget becomes easier to control, your planning becomes simpler, and the food in your kitchen becomes much more useful. 11. Keep a no-repeat waste list of foods you often throw away. The most useful grocery list is not a list of what you need to buy. It is a list of what you should think twice about buying again. Most households have certain foods that repeatedly enter the kitchen with good intentions, but rarely get finished. The problem is easy to miss because the waste happens slowly. One week it is a bag of salad leaves. Another time it is a large container of yogurt, a bunch of herbs, or a specialty ingredient bought for a meal that never happened. Each loss seems small, but when the same pattern repeats month after month, it becomes an expensive habit. A no-repeat waste list turns those forgotten losses into useful information. Whenever you throw away food because it spoiled, remained unopened, or simply was not enjoyed, write down what it was. You do not need a complicated spreadsheet. A short note on your phone or a small list in the kitchen is enough. The important part is recording the pattern instead of forgetting it before your next shopping trip. After several weeks, the list may reveal something surprising. Perhaps you regularly buy more fresh herbs than you can use. Maybe your household likes the idea of certain vegetables, but rarely chooses them when it is time to eat. Perhaps you keep buying a large package because it appears economical, even though part of it is consistently discarded. The waste list shows you the difference between the foods you imagine your household will eat and the foods it actually eats. This does not mean every item on the list must be permanently banned. Instead, each repeated waste should trigger a different decision next time. If a large bag of spinach repeatedly spoils, buy the smaller size. If fresh berries are often forgotten, purchase them less frequently or choose a quantity that disappears quickly. If a particular ingredient is only useful for one occasional dish, wait until that meal is definitely planned before buying it. The list can also reveal problems that are not really about the food itself. Perhaps vegetables are being wasted because they are stored where nobody sees them. Maybe leftovers disappear into opaque containers and are forgotten. Perhaps one family member likes a certain food, but the package is designed for far more people than will actually eat it. Once you understand why something is being wasted, you can fix the real problem rather than simply promising yourself to do better next week. There is another useful category to record: foods that you bought because you hoped you would become the kind of person who eats them regularly. Grocery stores encourage this kind of optimistic shopping. You see a healthy-looking ingredient and imagine a better version of your week. You picture yourself preparing it every morning or adding it to beautiful homemade meals. But if the product repeatedly remains untouched, your actual routine is giving you valuable feedback. Listen to that feedback. Healthy shopping is not about filling your cart with foods that look impressive. It is about choosing nutritious foods you will realistically prepare and enjoy. A simple vegetable eaten regularly has more practical value than an unusual superfood that eventually reaches the bin. You can make the list even more useful by adding a reason beside each item. Bought too much, family did not like it, forgot it was there, too much preparation, or only needed a small amount. These short notes reveal exactly what needs to change. The list becomes a personalized guide to your household. It tells you where your money tends to disappear and which purchasing habits repeatedly fail. Before your next grocery trip, glance at it for 30 seconds. If one of those foods is on your shopping list again, ask what will be different this time. If there is a clear answer, buy it differently. If nothing has changed, leave it behind. That small pause can prevent the same mistake from being purchased again and again. Instead of feeling guilty about wasted food, you turn previous waste into better information. Every item you once threw away can teach you something about quantity, preference, preparation, or routine. And once you start using those lessons, your grocery cart becomes increasingly matched to the way your household actually lives. 12. End every grocery trip with a 30-second cart audit. The final 30 seconds before checkout can be one of the most valuable parts of the entire shopping trip. By this point, the cart is full, your decisions have already been made, and it is tempting to move straight to the register. But this is exactly when a quick pause can catch unnecessary spending, missing meal pieces, and impulse purchases that slipped into the cart without much thought. A 30-second cart audit is simple. Stop before checkout, look at everything you are about to buy, and ask 3 questions. Will I use this? Does this fit the meals I actually plan to make? And is anything here only because I was hungry, distracted, or tempted by a promotion? You are not trying to analyze every item in detail. You are looking for obvious mismatches between your intentions and what ended up in the cart. Later, you become more likely to add extras simply because you are tired of deciding. A dessert near the checkout area, a second snack, another drink, or an attractive seasonal product can enter the cart almost automatically. The audit gives you one final chance to notice those choices before you pay for them. Start by checking the non-essential items. If you already chose one treat, do you really need 3 more? If 2 similar snacks are in the cart, which one would you actually prefer? If an item was added because it was discounted, would you still want it if the sale sign were not there? Removing even one unnecessary product can make a noticeable difference over many shopping trips. Next, check whether your meals are complete. Sometimes people buy plenty of groceries but still reach home without the one ingredient that turns those groceries into practical meals. You may have vegetables and rice, but no protein planned for a busy evening. You may have breakfast food, but nothing easy for lunch. A quick audit helps you notice these gaps while you are still in the store. Then look at the quantity. Did you accidentally buy too much of something perishable? Do you have several foods that all need to be eaten within the same few days? If the cart contains more fresh food than your household can realistically finish, put something back. Buying less at the right moment is often smarter than trying to rescue excess food later. The audit is also a good time to check for duplication. Grocery stores are designed to spread similar products across different sections, so it is easy to forget that you already picked something earlier. 2 sauces, 2 breads, several similar drinks, or multiple snack options may be hiding in different parts of the cart. Seeing everything together makes those overlaps obvious. You can also compare the cart to your original purpose for the trip. If you came in for ingredients that support several simple meals, does the cart still reflect that? Or has it slowly turned into a collection of interesting things that do not belong together? This question helps bring the trip back to its original goal. The important thing is to keep the audit short. If it becomes a 10-minute inspection, you will stop doing it. 30 seconds is enough to slow down, scan the cart, remove 1 or 2 weak purchases, and confirm that the rest deserves to come home. This final pause becomes a powerful habit because it teaches you to separate desire from usefulness. you begin to notice the items you commonly remove at the last moment, and eventually you stop adding them in the first place. Your shopping becomes cleaner, faster, and more deliberate. The cart audit does not require coupons, special apps, or advanced budgeting skills. It simply creates one moment of clarity before money leaves your account. And that small moment can protect everything you work to do during the rest of the trip. Buy food with purpose, keep the week manageable, reduce waste, and make sure the groceries you pay for actually support the life you intend to live. A smarter grocery routine is not about buying less at any cost, it is about making better choices before the cart becomes full. When you shop with more intention, food starts working harder for you. Fewer forgotten ingredients, fewer unnecessary extras, more useful meals, and less pressure to keep returning to the store. The real goal is not a perfect grocery list. It is a system you can repeat every week without feeling restricted. Start with 1 or 2 habits, test what actually fits your household, and build from there. Over time, you may notice that saving money and eating better are not two separate goals. Very often, they begin with the same decision, choosing only what genuinely deserves a place in your kitchen.